Hi there, and thank you for joining me for today's live reading of Things We Fake by Melinda De Ross, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Sue. A blind date? Not today, of all days. Have all four of you gone nuts? I shrieked, glaring at my girlfriends. Heads turned to frown at the crazy woman that was disturbing the otherwise pleasant atmosphere at Rumors, the bar where my friends and I met up for drinks occasionally. Actually, it's tomorrow. Do you have anything better to do? Ange raised one elegant eyebrow, taking a sip of her dirty martini. Even on a late Friday evening, her dress was perfectly pressed and her makeup flawless. Touche, Jessie said from her spot next to Ange. Her short, spiky red hair and red lipstick stood out in the crowd, in contrast with her tomboy appearance. You shouldn't dismiss a man you haven't met, Sue. Nikki spoke from behind me. I swiveled on the ridiculously small bar stool to look at my other two friends. If, by some miracle, I actually managed to be the first to arrive at the bar someday, I would select a table with proper chairs instead of these precarious perches. But since all my friends had legs as long as my entire body, getting up on one of these things was no sweat for them. I might as well sit on top of a skyscraper. Nikki raised her Bloody Mary to her mouth, reminding me of a vampire having a snack. She was dressed in unrelieved black, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Nikki's right. You might actually like this man. You two might be compatible. Lily gave me a smile as neat as her perfect chignon. I rolled my eyes. Don't go all psychologist on me. Lily's smile widened. Why not? It's free therapy. What can I get you, Sue? Lou, the middle aged man with a fringe of gray hair, owned the bar and worked the late afternoon shift on Fridays. He liked looking after the ladies and knew each one of us by name. How about a double vodka and soda? Sure thing. Double lime, too? I winked. You know me. It's the fruit that keeps me healthy. He laughed. Sure it is. I'll be right back. Lou had been a backup musician for Bon Jovi, and he'd opened Rumors in 1996. Although the girls and I live in Greenwich Village, a place we'd lovingly dubbed Singleville to reflect all of our current relationship statuses, we loved Rumors because it was close to our workplaces and Wall Street. Rumors drew the doctors, lawyers, and stockbrokers who worked in the gilded skyscrapers of Manhattan, not the penniless free spirits, artists, and musicians we ran into in our neighborhood. What happened today that's so bad? Lily asked me. You mean other than my friend setting me up with a stranger? I glared left and right. You guys know I hate that kind of thing. You might as well put up an ad on a billboard. Single and desperate woman looking for hot hunk. That could work. Jessie sipped her beer thoughtfully. Not desperate, but we could start with single, blonde, attractive, short and slightly chubby, I supplied dryly. Curvy, Lily corrected. Nikki grinned. Curvy, blonde, bilingual, Italian American, teacher by day, promising freak by night, Ange finished. We all burst into laughter, the tension of the week relieved by humor and alcohol. After a few moments, I blew out a sigh. The way things are going, I wouldn't have time to date anyway, even if I met the man of my dreams. Why? Lily asked. I shrugged. Mrs. West dusted off her favorite target today, and guess who that is? You, Jessie stated. Exactly. She has this uncanny ability to make my life harder. She could test the patient of a saint, and you all know I'm no saint. Not a saint, but you could be an angel, Lily said, one of the guardian kind. A guardian angel? I laughed. Highly unlikely. I'm serious, Lily said. You're always watching out for us, making sure we stay on the straight and narrow. You're too serious. You need to loosen up, relax, and have fun. Most of all, you need to learn to say no. Nikki chuckled. What did the Wicked Witch of the West do this time? She had her own little nickname for Mrs. West, the principal at Everly, the private school where I taught 7th and 8th grade English. I sighed. Same old story. She gave me more busy work I don't need. That's because you don't possess the no gene, and she knows it, Jessie said. You need to stop being such a people pleaser. She's not a people pleaser per se, Lily toyed with a strand of dark hair escaped from her chignon. She has a strong desire to please her parents that borderlines on pathological. As the only one in her family who left her hometown, she has a lot more to prove, and her mother's constant pressure for her to get married doesn't help. Why don't you just tell your mother to stuff it? Ange crossed her arms over her chest. Sue would never do that, Nikki said. I know her mom. She's scary as hell. Besides, her parents sacrificed a lot so Sue could go to college without student loans, so she feels she owes them a lot. I waved my hands, irritated. I can say no. I do it all the time. I said no to that guy who wanted to take me home and introduce me to a real man last week. That was only because he was pissed drunk and ready to pass out, Jessie pointed out. I scrunched up my nose. I said no to the Truffle Prince, didn't I? The Truffle Prince, also known as Neil Langley, bona fide scumbag and my ex-fiancé, was a dark, dark shadow from my past back in Warwick. His family specialized in unique and high-demand crops like truffles and saffron. When I'd first told my friends about him, Jessie immediately nicknamed him the Truffle Prince and bombarded me with jokes about pigs and truffles. Neil was now married to my ex-friend Sally, who was supposed to be my maid of honor at my wedding with Neil. Of course, when I found Neil playing hide the salami with Sally, I dumped his cheating ass using words I could never repeat. For reasons I wasn't ready to explore, I kept that humiliation to myself. Not even my mother knew why I'd broken my engagement, so she kept pushing me toward Neil, even after I'd canceled the wedding and moved to New York a decade ago. Despite his disappointment that I wasn't staying to help with the family business, my dad had been the only one who fully supported me. Dumping that loser was the best thing in your life, Anj said. Now, change of subject. What did the Wicked Witch voluntold you for this time? She named me the school's representative on the parents' committee. I muttered. It meets monthly on Saturday mornings. Also, I'll be the liaison between the school and the company providing the new software the school purchased. The first committee meeting is tomorrow at 9. When I argued that I had plans, she told me to change them. I mimicked the principal in her overly articulate tone. Miss Morelli, this is a private school and we're all expected to pitch in with extracurricular activities. You're young and unmarried, so that shouldn't be a problem. I suppose to her, 30 seems very young, Jessie gestured with her beer. Why can't Mama Morelli agree? Even I am sick of her trying to marry you off. Jessie and the girls had nicknamed my mother Mama Morelli, and it made it sound as though we were some Italian mob family instead of modest winemakers. It's easy for you to talk, I scowled. You're only 25, the baby of the group. The rest of us have our biological clocks ticking in our ears. So, say no to Mrs. West. Lily eyed me, raising her margarita to her mouth. But you can't, can you? She shook her head. One of these days, you'll have to trade in the spaghetti noodle spine you have for a real one and put your foot down. It's not that easy. I took a large sip of vodka. I may not be crazy about Mrs. West, but I love my job, and I can't go back home to Warwick with my tail tucked between my legs. Anj shifted in her seat. Honestly, Sue, I don't see what's so bad about that. The committee meets once a month. It's no big deal. Maybe you'll meet an attractive single dad there. Who could be better for a teacher than a father who takes time out of his busy schedule to sit on a parents' committee? As for the computer thing, if the cute dad angle doesn't work out, maybe the Geek Squad wannabe will, and you'll have a lot of fun liaisoning. Maybe, but does she want to get involved with anyone like that? Nikki mused. I hated it when she spoke as if I wasn't there, but since we were both from Warwick and I'd known her my entire life, I was used to her idiosyncrasies. She hadn't made friends easily back home. While she was the newest member of our friends group, everyone had accepted her, with conditions. Nobody could be as smart as Nikki was without losing a few people skills, and knowing when to stop talking about her job as a forensic scientist was one of them. If we wanted to stop someone from hitting on us, we would just nudge Nikki to talk about her work. Nothing kills a pickup line faster than a cheerful rundown of body decomposition. If it's a father, Nikki continued, odds are he'll just be shopping for a mommy substitute. And the tech guy? His idea of intimacy is downloading updates first. No, Sue needs a man who's emotionally available and at the peak of his sexuality. If you find an extra one of those, send him my way. Jessie finished her beer, took out a few bills from her pocket, and set them on the bar. Sue, shall I call our Uber? Yeah, we'd better get going. Tonight I plan to give myself a little TLC. Manicure, facial, bubble bath, the works. And then I plan to finish off that new suspense novel. Never a dull moment in my life. I took a mouthful of my drink. Good God, girl, Anj said. You really need to get out more, and I don't mean to meetings. Is there really no one at school who could make your nights more interesting? I burst out laughing, sending vodka and soda up my nose. Not a pleasant sensation at the best of times. Let's see, there are 40 staff members, of which 11 are men. We have the vice principal in his late 50s who's single, two who are gay, and the rest are happily or unhappily married. The old guy sounds promising, Jesse interjected. VPs must make good money. He could be your sugar daddy. A teacher with money? That's an oxymoron. I laughed. Besides, Fred still lives with his mother. A mama's boy? Ugh. Nikki shook her head. There's probably more life in the corpses in my morgue than in that guy. He's definitely not the kind of stiff I'd want in my bed. Nor me in mine. I turned to Ange. So what's this guy Sam like? Ange speared an olive in her glass and popped it into her mouth. You're meeting him here tomorrow at 1:30. He's an accountant. He's friends with my accountant. I only met him once briefly, but I thought he was really good looking. That's all I know about him. You'll have to discover the rest. Great. I suppose that will be the most excitement I'll get this weekend. Come on, our Uber's here, Jessie said. The girls and I headed out into the cold, and we went our separate ways. Jessie and I lived in the same building. Once we reached home, we climbed out of the car, and a blast of icy wind propelled me across the sidewalk. Slipping and sliding on my heeled boots with the dexterity of Bambi on ice, I managed to make it to the bottom of the stairs. There's nothing I like better than snow on Christmas Eve, but it's friggin' April, I said through my chattering teeth. It's spring. The calendar says so. Jessie chuckled. Take it up with Mother Nature. We hurried through the wet drizzle and climbed the 6 steps up to the veranda. Jessie as sure-footed as a mountain goat, me grabbing the railing to stay upright. You really need to work on your balance. Those heels will be the death of you, she tossed over her shoulder. I harumphed, knowing damn well she was right, but I would never give up those precious 3 inches. Hi, Sue, Jessie. Sebastian, my super hot next door neighbor, held the door open for us as he went out. Nice spring weather, huh? Bite me. Jessie shoved past him. I smiled at Sebastian. Don't mind Jess. She's having a bad day. She's always having a bad day, Sebastian muttered, closing the door behind him. What's your beef with Sebastian? I asked Jessie as we climbed the stairs. I don't have a beef or anything else with him. Casanova's not my type. She stopped in front of her door on the first floor. Talk tomorrow. Good night. I climbed another floor, my fingers frozen as I unlocked my door. Like many of the residential buildings in Greenwich Village, ours sheltered an eclectic group of tenants, some who'd lived here longer than I'd been alive. Our building consisted of 3 floors and a basement, 4 apartments per floor, and another in the basement for the building's superintendent. Mr. Gore kept the place spick and span, but rarely did anyone see him. I had a theory that, like werewolves and vampires, he only came out at night. Living in Manhattan wasn't cheap, but if I wanted to stay here and be close to the school, forking out more than a third of my income for rent was the only choice I had. After rent, bills, and groceries, there wasn't much left of my salary at the end of each month. It was a price I willingly paid to be close to my friends and as far away from home as I could get. While Nikki and I were both from Warwick and had known each other forever, Jessie was the first one I'd bonded with. Her dad, who'd owned a hardware store on Houston, had lived in the apartment below mine, and we had been neighbors for several years. Jessie had lived in an apartment above the hardware store. When her dad died 2 years ago, she'd moved into his place. The tragedy of his death had turned Jessie and me from neighbors into best friends. I set off to treat myself. I heated a frozen entree for dinner, redid the clear polish on my nails, and followed a tutorial for a DIY wine facial. Since my parents owned a vineyard and winery, I was well aware of the benefits of wine. Being the reflection of an American mother and Italian father, DIY was my middle name. I crossed over to the window to close the drapes, the dark glass reflecting my image. I burst out laughing. Dressed in an old Chanel robe, my hair pushed back off my face by a purple sweatband to keep off the sticky, dark pink facial mask, I was a sight. I thought about what my friends had said. Was I a people pleaser? Maybe. I just disliked conflict. Was that really such a terrible thing? I like to think I could hold my ground when it counted. I wasn't a doormat. But if I could avoid drama, why wouldn't I? Keeping the peace wasn't cowardice. It was strategy. Right? I shook my head, reached for the wine bottle, and poured some of the red Merlot I'd brought from my last visit home several months ago, one of my father's signature wines. Carlo Morelli's Merlot was famous, even beyond the limits of my little town. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Hoffman, one of my upstairs neighbors. Hi, Mrs. H. What can I do for you? Hi, Sue. I'm baking cookies for my grandson and I ran out of chocolate chips. Do you have any? I do. I actually bought them specifically for her to borrow, since her gratitude was expressed in cookies. But I can't bring them up to you right now. Can you wait 20 minutes? Oh dear, I really don't want my dough to congeal. Can I come down and get them? Sure. I set the chocolate chips on the table at the entrance, unlocked the door, and returned to my wine and my book. I'd only read a page when someone knocked. It's open, I called, setting the book down and getting to my feet. The door opened hesitantly, but instead of Mrs. Hoffman, a gorgeous stranger stood there. Tall and broad shouldered, he filled the doorway with quiet strength. A black leather jacket molded to his frame, and dark jeans clung to his long, powerful legs. Damp strands of thick brown hair gleamed from the sleet outside. His face was all clean lines and raw male beauty, bronze skin, a jaw dusted with stubble, and eyes the color of melted chocolate that held both warmth and caution. There was a knapsack slung casually over his shoulder. Mamma mia! My breath whooshed out of my body and a tingle crept up my inner thighs. If he were lost, I would be happy to give him a home. I smiled, but instead of smiling in return, his chocolate brown eyes filled with horror and his eyebrows drew into a frown. Like a bolt of lightning, it hit me. The face mask. Excuse me, Mrs. Hoffman chose that moment to arrive. Young man, either go in or get out of the way, she said, shoving him inside the apartment. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching the last few minutes of my life fly past me. Mrs. Hoffman, nearsighted at the best of times, focused on the chocolate chips and smiled. Thanks, Sue. Don't you have a nice pink glow? She turned around, shoved the man out of her way once more, and walked out of the apartment, leaving me alone with the gorgeous stranger.